everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Walchet Talks. Today I'm joined by Uwais Iqbal, and we are going to be talking about demystifying AI for legal teams. This will be part two of our series covering generative AI for legal teams. Generative AI has been the primary focus of the legal tech world of late, but it's not actually new as we covered in part one with Brian Kennedy. However, there is still so much mystery surrounding AI technologies and how they can be applied in the legal world. Our goal today is to peel back some of that mystery and enable legal professionals to better understand these tools. And there's no one better to help us do that than Uwais Iqbal. Welcome to the podcast, Uwais.
Hi, Priya. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and happy to talk about AI.
We're really excited to have you here with us, Uwais. And I'm just going to give the audience a little bit of background about you before we jump into the questions. So, Uwais is an experienced AI practitioner focused on legal tech applications. For the past 5 years, or rather more than 5 years, he has worked on designing and implementing AI, machine learning, and natural language processing solutions at various legal tech startups and a corporate innovation lab. Most recently, he launched Simplexico, an AI company that provides education design and development services tailored for legal teams looking to leverage AI. He's passionate about democratizing access to AI and providing a pragmatic look into how to put AI to work for legal services. I'm super excited to welcome Uwais to the show today. Thanks for joining us, Uwais.
Thanks for having me, and I'm super excited to talk to you about AI today.
It's kind of like the buzzword now, but I know you've been doing a lot of this work before the buzzword. So I'm going to start with like a basic question. Often AI is not explained in a way that's relevant and understandable for legal professionals. So, in simple terms, what is machine learning, natural language processing, and AI? And what are some of the basics that people need to know about these technologies and how they work?
That's a really good question. I think everybody is talking about AI, but I don't think enough people understand or are able to give a good definition of what AI actually is and how to think about it. We'll actually use a definition where we think of AI as a technique that leverages machines to mimic or replicate what humans can do when it comes to problem solving or decision making. So what that breaks down to is, as humans, very naturally we can do different things. I can look in front of me and I can see a desk, I can see my keyboard, I can see my glass of water. I can hear sounds and I can process them and I can understand what you're speaking about from those words. So as humans, we have these very natural cognitive skills that we're able to perform. With AI, what we're looking to do is try and explore how we can get machines to replicate some of those behaviors, so that now instead of having to rely on a human being for a particular task or for a particular objective, I can now rely on a machine to do that instead. So AI is this broad umbrella term which looks like how do we replicate what humans can do when it comes to problem solving or decision making. And machine learning is a particular branch of AI where we want to achieve that objective through the use of data. So an easy example is something as simple as identifying the governing law jurisdiction within a contract. As a human, that involves some cognitive skill. You have to read through the contract, you have to understand the language, and you have to be able to spot where the mention of governing law is and decipher what the jurisdiction is. So that's something which involves problem solving or decision making. With machine learning, what we're looking to do is effectively teach a machine how to do that process, how to do that task through the use of data. So what we do is we give a machine lots and lots of examples of contracts. We give the machine lots and lots of examples of jurisdictions or wordings or clauses which mention jurisdictions, and then point out to the machine that this is the governing law jurisdiction. And through that process, the machine is able to spot patterns, identify trends, and figure out how to look for and how to understand what is the governing law jurisdiction within a contract. So machine learning is a particular way of achieving AI through the use of data. Natural language processing is, again, it's a particular branch of AI. But in natural language processing, what we're interested in doing is focusing on those types of skills humans have when it comes to language. So if I look at words on a screen, I can understand them. They're not just arbitrary symbols, they're letters, they make up words, there's spaces between them. I can understand context, I can understand meaning. So that's a human skill of being able to understand text and spot what's going on in the text. So anything where we're looking to replicate what humans can do when it comes to language falls in the realm of natural language processing. So AI is this broad umbrella term of how do we get machines to do what humans can do. Machine learning is trying to do that through the use of data. And natural language processing is thinking about those aspects where we want to mimic what humans could do when it comes to language.
I love how you broke it down. And I think a lot of the way in which we teach AI to work like how humans is a lot like how we teach junior lawyers to actually recognize the jurisdiction clause, the governing law clause. You show them a couple of clauses, you tell them this is how it works, and they will sometimes make mistakes, and then you point out why they made a mistake, and you get, you kind of train them to recognize it right. And that's exactly, it sounds like the same process that we follow with AI. So, very quickly, could you also touch on the broad aspects of how these concepts are being applied in the legal sector? I know we talked about, a couple of examples in the jurisdiction and governing law clause, but any other specific examples you can point to?
Yeah, I think from a broad perspective, what we're doing in trying to apply AI to the legal sector is thinking about the types of things lawyers tend to do on a day-to-day basis. What type of activities are they involved in? What type of tasks do they do? What problem solving and decision making skills are they employing in their work? And then we look at where machines are now good at doing those types of things and seeing if there's opportunities for us to leverage machines instead of human beings. At Simplexico, we have what we call the legal AI actions. And in the work we've been doing in terms of trying to educate the industry and speaking with firms and running these workshops, we've broken down 6 or 7 different actions lawyers tend to do in their workflows where we can now think about applying machines and AI instead of having to use humans. So that example with the jurisdiction of the governing law clause, that's known as extraction. So extracting information, that's something lawyers tend to do a lot of. They have to go through documents and find relevant bits of information. That's something we can now look at using machines for. Then we also have labeling information. So is this document, is it an NDA? Is it a services agreement? Is this an employment agreement? Or is this clause speaking about assignment? Is it speaking about termination? So another aspect where machines can now be used as labeling information. So that's either at the document level, at the sentence level, or even at the clause level. We also have organizing information. So if you think about someone working in e-discovery, if they're given a disclosure of lots and lots of documents, part of their work is figuring out how to organize that information and make it more digestible. So now we can look at using AI systems to aggregate and cluster the information in the right ways so that we can get to the right information quicker. Then we also have comparing information. So if you think about a lawyer who's looking at a drafted clause and he's trying to compare it against a playbook standard, we can now use machines to try and identify if there's any similarities or any differences between the texts, so that we can figure out if the wording is problematic or if it's valid based on our positions. And then we also have the more traditional ones around search, so finding information. So if you have a corpus of documents and you want to find the employment agreements where people have been employed for a particular duration of time. So again, finding information. And now with generative AI, the newer actions which have emerged over the past 12 months are around drafting. So lawyers tend to spend a lot of time drafting text. So we can use AI to draft text. We can use AI to summarize text. So going from long form text to short form summaries. And now we can also do this very interesting aspect of asking or interrogating documents. So if we have a document and we have questions about the document, or we have questions about a set of documents, we can interrogate those documents and ask questions, and we can get large language models to do some of that heavy lifting for us. So those are 6 or 7 actions which touch on the types of things lawyers tend to do in a day-to-day in their day-to-day work.
Very interesting. And like you said, each of these functions are performed in several different aspects of the legal service delivery. So whether it's drafting a document, reviewing a contract, providing legal advice, researching on case laws, all of that requires one or more of these functions to be used. And I think augmenting what they're presently doing with the help of AI will make them a lot more efficient. So
Yeah, and that's precisely the goal. I think there's been this narrative in the industry for quite some time that AI will replace lawyers, that it's either or, either you have
yeah.
humans or you have machines. And I think that narrative is quite destructive, and it's quite problematic in that it makes us choose between using technology or staying with our old ways.
Yeah.
But I think the more interesting approach is what you mentioned about how do we augment legal services workflows, where just as people use machines, they use email, they use the internet, they're now using this new technology of AI to do their work.
Yeah. So, where do you see the biggest gaps between the hype and the reality when it comes to AI application in the legal space? Because everybody's talking about AI, but are they really getting what they want out of using AI in the legal sector?
I think there's a massive gap between what is the innovation theater, lots of people talking about AI or giving the impression that they're doing interesting things with AI, and the reality of firms, their actual data they have access to, how organized and clean that data is. So I think there's massive gaps in terms of the conversations which are happening and the reality of what people are doing behind the scenes. I think the biggest gap I see is around education. It's very easy for people to get swept up in the hype of AI and the headlines. One thing we realized, which was a massive problem, is people don't really have a an education. They've not gone through a process of learning about AI. Lots of folks, the only way they've come to know about AI is either through some headlines or through some hyped marketing materials or through playing with ChatGPT. And that's good to get them interested. But I think we have to do a bit more if we're serious about this technology around how do we educate the legal industry? How do we make sure everybody knows what AI is, what it can do, and more importantly, what it can't do, what the limitations are, so that we don't end up people don't end up using this technology in ways which can affect consumers or affect people when it comes to legal advice. So I think there's lots and lots of gaps, but I'm optimistic because it's still early days and there's still a lot of work to do with the technology.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and I think that's emerging from the conversations and the work we're doing with customers, is that there's no one size fits all solution. That, like, you can go and buy Copilot, you can go and test it like a legal AI tool like Harvey or CoCounsel, or you can do something a bit more complex. Like, there's lots and lots of options available now with large language models and generative AI in particular. But the key for lots of teams and firms is to really think clearly about, for their work and the type of matters they work on or the type of work they do in-house, where can AI actually bring the most value for them? And that will be different from within every organization and within every legal team. There'll be varying levels of maturity when it comes to data. There'll be varying levels of maturity when it comes to how open people are to adopting new technology. I think there's all of these concerns and considerations which aren't part of the conversation, which is problematic. A lot of the conversation is use AI and everything will be fixed and it will be fine. But that's not the case. AI will still require you doing the work of organizing data, doing work of making sure that these systems are trustworthy. So there is a lot of work still to be done if people are serious about leveraging AI in the right way.
Yeah, you have to play the long game. You can't get any quick results.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are some of the promising real world use cases and examples that you've seen in the legal sector where AI has really delivered value?
So we've spoken with firms that have identified over 100 to 200 use cases within their own organization of how AI can be applied. I think what what we've seen is the use cases tend to break down into three main areas. One is business services or the business of law. And these are more traditional applications in business. So thinking about how AI can be used in HR, marketing, finance for traditional kind of business disciplines. That's not too exciting because I think every business will be exploring those opportunities. Then there's use cases around legal operations or legal project management. So how do you use AI to help enable the effective management and delivery of legal work? So that's looking at how AI can be used, for example, with helping draft time narratives for people who are doing billable work, helping use AI to understand where people are spending the most time in the matter, so you can predict forecast and you can forecast resourcing and utility, for example. So that's more in like the operations and management space. But I think that the space we're really excited about, where generative AI has opened up the door completely, is thinking about, in the practice of law itself, how can AI be used in that integrated workflow of legal services delivery? There are very general use cases which have been around for a while. So things like due diligence for contracts, contract review, legal research. These have been there for a while, and there's been tools and products in that space for a long time that use AI, more traditional versions of AI. But I think that the biggest opportunity now is for firms to think about, specifically within the practice of law, how they can start augmenting their workflows with AI so that they're adopting the technology and they're driving change with it.
Yeah. And I think the practice of law, like you mentioned, those use cases are the most exciting because that's when you feel, okay, this is the high value work. And if AI can actually do even part of the high value work, it's really adding to my efficiency, my productivity, reliability of work product, all of that. So often, teams want to jump into AI head first. Do you have any recommendations for legal teams that are starting to explore potential AI applications in their organizations? What are the things they should think about or focus on? How do they go
Yeah,
about getting started?
yeah. So I guess the biggest thing to start with is education. I think people don't realize how complex the technology is and how easy it is to become confused with a lot of the buzzwords which are floating around. Generative AI, large language models, retrieval augmented generation, RAG, and there'll be more which come out as part of the process of technology. So I think the key thing first is really understanding what the technology is, what it enables, and then looking internally to try and identify what are the problems or the use cases we have internally which we need help solving, and then going to market to see what options are available.
Mm.
I think what tends to happen is lots of folks, they go to the market and they get excited about the new technology, and they get excited about a product or a solution, and then they almost have to go searching for a use case or go searching for a problem to implement the technology. So it's almost the wrong way around. So
First,
it's like a solution in search of a problem. And I think a lot of legal tech ends up being that, which isn't great. So I think part of what we're doing at Simplexico is we're trying to help people figure out what their problems are, define them in a very, very precise way with design thinking and all of that kind of all of those cool workshops that we run. And then once you have these very focused use cases, then it's a conversation of is there a tool on the market that can do this for me, which I can buy off the shelf and it will work and it's good, or do I have to build something custom because there's nothing on the market which suits our needs? So what we're focusing on at Simplexico is helping customers in the space where at the moment there isn't anything in the market which fits their needs, and they want to build something custom for their solution for their problem they have. So we have the legal AI canvas, and we're putting together some more resources around helping people think through how to like find a use case, how to structure it, and how to think through that problem definition stage, if that makes sense.
yeah. That I can't tell you the number of times someone has come to me and said, which is the best tool out there in the market for XYZ. And I always say there is no such thing. I mean, yes, there will be some tools that are better than the others, but by and large, all tools are good. It's not about which is the best tool, it's the which is the best tool for your use case. So it's exactly what you said, matching the use case with the technology is so, so important and often so overlooked. Like you said, it's a solution. Otherwise, it's a solution looking for the problem statement, which is the other way around. Yeah. So this brings me actually to my next question, which is how should buyers evaluate these vendors and their capabilities? Because there are a ton of tools out there which are saying that they have AI, they are AI empowered, they have AI built into them. Like AI is there everywhere, or at least somewhere on the website. So how do you actually, do a thorough evaluation of these vendors?
So AI has become overused. It's been whitewashed. So if somebody says they're using AI, it's it's almost taken as a given. Everybody should be using AI, or you're going to find everybody claiming they're using AI in different ways, which is another problem I won't get into. I think the key thing folks can do is understand the use case they have, so understand the problem they have, and then also think about adopting a new technology like hiring a new employee. Okay, so bear with me with this. So if you're hiring somebody into your organization, you'll make sure there's minimum requirements of education. So they have to study, they have to go to law school, they have to do X, Y, and Z. Then you'll have a minimum requirement of experience that they have to work. They have to work in this sector, or they have to work on these types of matters or these types of contracts for a particular period of time. So they have a level of expertise. And then almost always in the interview process, you do some form of evaluation or some form of test to figure out how competent they are in their skills and their abilities. So if you approach adopting a new technology in the same way, that what are your minimum acceptable criteria as a user of the technology, then you can almost create a benchmark and evaluate these products or evaluate these solutions. And that's a bit of hard work that you have to do internally. You have to figure out what types of work do you want to use with this technology, what type of outputs do you expect with this technology, what's good, what's not good enough, and what's the minimum acceptable performance. And once you've defined almost the interview process or the examination process, then you can go out to vendors and say, hey, we've got this use case. These are our requirements. These are our minimum acceptable criteria as users. Do you meet these criteria or not? And then it becomes a much more productive conversation because you can almost begin to benchmark vendors and see how far off they are from what you're looking for to be satisfied with the solution.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And I think that's a note everyone listening should uh, take note of. So, going back to the hype that we talk about, and as you know, there is a tech hype cycle that looms over any emerging technology. And, it kind of starts with an innovation trigger, it goes up to like a peak of inflated expectations, and then it suddenly drops like to a trough of disillusionment, and then
Yeah.
a bit more, few more people start using it, and there's a slope of enlightenment, and then we reach the plateau of productivity. So, where would you say AI in legal is on this curve?
I would definitely say it's at the inflated expectations space because
Yeah.
everyone has these amazing expectations of AI. And I think what will happen over the next 12 months is there'll be a lot of horror stories. There'll be a lot of people rejecting the technology because it's not that great. And we'll see that. But I think that the biggest thing we're interested in doing is figuring out how do we like jump ahead to that plateau of productivity, because the hype cycle is effectively a reflection of buyer awareness or buyer knowledge of the technology, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the expectations get inflated because nobody really understands the technology. They just see it as something attractive, so everybody rushes towards it.
The shiny new
And
thing.
the shiny syndrome, so everybody jumps towards it. And then the trough of disillusionment happens because people don't get their use cases right, and they don't define their criteria of acceptance. So then they have a bad experience, and then eventually people figure that out, and they're like, okay, now I know I can use it for XYZ, and it's not meant to be used for Y, so I'm not even going to think about using it for Y. So I think it's a reflection of education and maturity of engaging with how you think about technology, if that makes sense. And we can skip a lot of that bad experience or a lot of that time wasted in terms of inflated expectations and the trough of disillusionment by becoming more educated about the technology, being more open and transparent about how we go about finding use cases, how do we evaluate vendors, how do we evaluate solutions. Because I think the entire industry is on this journey. That if you go on LinkedIn or you go on social media and you see everybody's having these conversations and everyone's trying to figure things out as they're going along. So nobody's figured this out, and there's no silver bullet solution which will automatically make everything better with AI.
Yeah. It's a lot of trial and error. And as much as you can, I think this is the other thing that I'm hearing, that you can't, or rather, innovating in a bubble. I don't want to say can't, but innovating in a bubble is hard. And, the more we collaborate, the more we share our experiences, the innovation speed becomes a lot more rapid.
The more we share, the more we can help everybody get along that innovation cycle much faster.
Yeah. So great. I think we've covered a lot of ground today on demystifying AI for legal teams. We covered a lot of basic topics and kind of explained it in threadbare, just building block style.
Hmm.
I want to thank you, Uwais, for taking the
Thank you
time
for
out to
having
dig
me.
under the hype and giving us a great look into AI. We really appreciate you sharing your extensive experience with us. So happy to have had you here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And if you want to reach out to Waste, anything you want to tell the audience on how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can head up and check out the Simplexico website, so simplexico.ai. You can find out more about what we're doing, and we also have a resources section where we have a glossary, we have some knowledge articles about AI and legal, and we're quite active on LinkedIn, so you can feel free to reach out to me and follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active. I speak about AI in the legal industry a lot, and part of what we're doing is trying to create that conversation of how do we do innovation better across the industry.
Always, I really like your tagline on your LinkedIn profile. Don't be shy. Ask me about AI.
Yeah, I mean, don't be shy.
That-
Ask me about AI. I'm always happy to talk.
Yeah, and I was thinking that when I read that this is like a trigger call to action. Like, okay, fine. I'm not going to be. I have a really silly question, but it's fine. Who said don't be shy? Ask me about AI. About it and go.
And people have reached out and we've had really cool conversations. And I think I'm always keen to talk about AI. So yeah, happy to chat if anyone's interested in reaching out.
Great. Please make note of that, everybody in the audience. And thank you to all our listeners for staying the course. And hopefully, you gained a lot of knowledge and information today. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.